Hello, stream. Shush. All right, continuing on this read-through. I can only work for an hour, but we will use that hour. And tomorrow I'm taking the day off. Ha! All right, Chapter 6. 2 days into their journey, the road began to wend through the western foothills of the Great Rocks. The skeletal trees grew fewer and farther between, giving way to an open but hilly landscape that must have been brilliant green in summer, but was now a dead dark brown where it was not covered in snow. After 4 days of hard riding, they emerged through a great cleft in the earth onto a highland, and there they came to Bertram at last. The city had been built at the confluence of 2 rivers that came leaping down out of the Great Rocks to the east. The waters joined to form the Fanrong, which ran west to Dorsey's coast to meet the Western Sea. I remember that was the last thing that happened on the last stream. Where I was like, they formed the Fanrong. I don't think that's what's on my map. Turned out it was not. Let's just make sure that that updated edition is in. That's in the book now. Good. Okay. To form the Fanrong, which ran west to Dorsey's coast to meet the Western Sea. No kingdoms contested that coastline, and Dorsey drew great wealth from its fertile lands. Eventually, that wealth spread through the rest of the kingdom by way of the river. They paused for a midday meal of rabbit that Chet had shot that morning. While they ate, they gazed down at the city. Jem leaned forward suddenly and pointed. "Is that the King's Road running through the city?" "It is," said she, nodding. "Bertram was the capital of Dorsey for hundreds of years. When the Dark Wars ended and the last Wizard King vanished, the High King took some of Feldamar's lands and gave them to the Dortian King. Or, you might say, returned them to her. They were Dortian lands in the beginning, or else the kingdom would not have earned its name, for it would have bordered only 2 of the oceans." Jem's eyes widened as he stared at her. "The last Wizard King? What do you mean they vanished?" Sheehan paused for a moment, and she looked at the boy carefully. "It is not something that is widely known, and it might have been better for me not to mention it. But the last wizard king ruled in Feldamar and held her kingdom long against the other 8. When the war turned against her, she vanished. The High King Andriana searched everywhere, but never found her. Underrealm lived in fear of her return for many years, but that is now centuries past. She died long ago, though we may never know where. In any case, when the Northeast lands were reclaimed, the Dorsian king moved the capital to its original home in Danfon. Therefore, Dorsey has had 2 capitals, but they are both on the King's Road in accordance with the ancient edicts. Lauren stared at the scout. She did not think she had heard the mystic woman speak so much in all the time they had ridden together. I thought you were a woman of Dulmoon. I am, but I was stationed in Bertram for a number of years, said Shion. In that time I learned something of its history. She bowed her head and tore another hunk of rabbit from the bone, looking slightly embarrassed. They reached the city just after nightfall. Lauren feared they might find the gates closed. Lauren feared they might find the gates closed, but they stood open. The war with Dulmoon was far away, and Bertram had no reason to fear any attack. A constable at the gatehouse asked a few questions, but when Uzo and Shun flashed their mystic badges, the woman quickly waved them on. You should have a badge, Jem told Lauren as they rode through the gate. Lauren frowned. What sort of badge? A mark of office, said Jem. You are not some simple traveler. You are the Nightblade. She gave a quick glance around in case anyone was close enough to overhear, but the street was mostly empty. I have a writ with the High King's seal, she said in a low voice. That is good enough. Jem lifted his chin. It is not as impressive, certainly. To Lauren's surprise, Uzo snickered aloud at that. Jem beamed for the rest of their ride through the city. They found an inn with good stables for the horses. In the common room, Lauren bought dinner and a few bottles of passable wine. They had not had the opportunity to eat well since leaving the city of Dahab and Feldamar, and that seemed a lifetime ago. Lauren thought a decent meal might be good for the other's mood, and mayhap hers as well. It took half the coin left in her purse, but she tried not to think of that. Once they found Weil and Bertram, she hoped she could sell some of her maidstones to replenish her reserves. And if nothing else, she could find a presence of mystics in the city. Her identification from the High King would be as good as a banknote to them, and they would fill her purse to bursting. They would send word to Cal, but Lauren could leave Bertram far behind before he found her. In the middle of their meal, she turned to Annis. How might we go about finding Weil? Annis thought hard and then gave a quick glance at Uzo and Shion. The only thing we know about him for certain is that he traffics in certain goods beyond the king's law, but we cannot simply walk into a jeweler and ask for such a man. A jeweler? Why a jeweler? Said Jem. Annis arched an eyebrow. They are familiar with the transport and safekeeping of small but very valuable objects. It makes them particularly suited to smuggle similar goods. Can we not simply ask for Weil by name? Said Chet. He does not need to know what we wish to speak to him about. Jem and Annis rolled their eyes in unison. Then they each saw the other doing it, and there was a moment of uncomfortable silence. That is not quite how it works, said Annis, a flush in her cheeks. Smugglers do not like strangers who ask about them. Too often such people are the king's law in disguise. How does one meet a smuggler, then? Said Lauren. By personal introduction, said Annis. A friend who knows the smuggler brings in a new contact. If Zane were here, he might be able to help us, but he is not. So we must find someone with whom we can establish trust quickly enough to get such an introduction, said Lauren. That seems a tall order. Annis sighed. It is. These circles are carefully guarded even in the meanest of towns, and Bertram is a grand city. Still, if we promise, or at least hint, that there may be a considerable amount of gold available to our contact as a reward. Very well, said Lauren. We will rest well tonight and start tomorrow. They went to bed soon after their meal and rose before dawn. In the morning, Lauren faced a dilemma. She had to leave someone in the room to guard their possessions. During their travels so far, that person had been Annis, but now she needed Annis for the negotiations. Hey, Erica! Slightly sunny L.A.? Well, we have almost no sun up here in Oregon right now, and I love it. We finally have rain again, and I miss it so much. I'm going to make a YouTube video about it next week. Jem was streetwise beyond compare and could be of great use in the city. She knew something of Bertram already, and Lauren wanted Uzo in case things came to a fight. That left Chet, and she did not think he would enjoy being left behind, but when she proposed it to him, he accepted quite easily. I'm the best choice, he told her, giving a small smile. Besides, how could I complain about being allowed to rest? We are all road-weary. If anything, I feel guilty that the rest of you must remain on your feet while I sleep the day away. With the matter... Just a little overcast? No, that's nice. That's nice in L.A., if you know what I mean. A little break from the sun. How'd the move go? With the matter settled, the party moved out into the cities. Lauren had not been able to see much of Bertram during the night, but now its splendor was laid before her in the dawn. It was nowhere near as grand as the High King's seat, but it rivaled Dahab for both its size and its proud history. The buildings were crafted with exquisite care, with solid white walls and glistening red tile roofs. Contrary to many cities she had seen in her travels, this one seemed to have been laid out with careful consideration. Streets did not twist and turn with the land, but had been laid out in a careful grid that made navigation easier. The roofs peaked the same as many in Dorsey, and very similar to the ones she had seen in Danfon in her dream. Fun stuff. Shun led them towards the part of town where the jewelers lay. All the crafters' shops clustered near to the river, where the workers could easily dispose of the refuse and rubbish of their daily work. Annis carefully considered the jewelers one by one and stepped into only the ones that seemed exceptionally fine. Would it not be better to try the poorer ones, said Lauren? Surely the less reputable shops would be the ones to associate with someone like a smuggler. Annis arched an eyebrow. Do you think so? There's a great deal of coin to be made in dealings beyond the king's law, at least until you find the noose around your neck. Those who walk such dark roads know it, and they like to spend their coin while they have the chance. Lauren smirked and deferred to Annis's judgment, but though they entered many shops and while Annis dropped many broad hints that they had very valuable gems to sell, they did not seem to have any luck. The shop owners did not seem to take the hint, except for one or two who vigorously denied dealing in cargo they called too valuable. When Annis pressed the point, they asked Lauren's party to leave, no matter how much coin was offered. After their fifth such attempt, Lauren was beginning to grow nervous. Some of these jewelers almost certainly understand what we are talking about, she told Annis, but they are nervous to speak to us for some reason. Do you not think they might send word to Weil that we are searching for him? There is little we can do about that, said Annis. We must hope that we find someone more amenable before Weil catches wind of us. Lauren sighed and nodded, but then she came to a sudden stop in the street. The others paused, looking at her curiously. Lauren, said Annis, what is it? Only a few paces away was a building. It had a plain wood door and a blue sign with a yellow hammer. It was the smithy she had seen in her dream and in miniature on the map, and now it stood before her in Bertram. Lauren felt a sensation that had become too familiar, a wild turning in her stomach and a disorientation that made her dizzy. I think we should look here, she said, pointing to the smithy. Annis looked at it and frowned. This place? It is a smithy. If I read its sign right, a steelsmith, though they may deal in silver as well, but they do not traffic in gems, and that is where our interest lies. Yet I think we should investigate, said Lauren. She gave Annis a look. Something about the place looks familiar. Annis's eyes widened slightly, and she glanced at Jem. He looked from her to Lauren, and the three of them nodded at each other. If you are finished passing messages back and forth with your eyes, mayhap we should go inside, said Uzo. His tone was carefully neutral, but Lauren thought she heard an air of exasperation behind his words. Hey, Kristen! Very well, said Lauren. Annis, lead the way. They went in. The smithy was larger than it looked from the outside, for the room stretched far back, mayhap twice as large as most of the other buildings. On the other end of the wide workroom, Lauren saw another door leading to the street on the other side. With such an impressive presence, she guessed this place had a great deal of business. Near the room's center was the smith. She leaned over a bench in conversation with a young man, one of her apprentices, Lauren assumed. But when she looked up and noticed Lauren's party, she came to them at once. Her arms and chest were bare beneath a leather apron that covered her front, and every bit of her bristled with muscle. Her black hair was long, but bound up in a folded ponytail, no doubt to keep it free from the heat of the forge while she worked. She spent a moment sizing the party up, considerable arms folded over her chest. Lauren was reminded of Naya for an uncomfortable moment. Good morn, said the smith, or near enough to afternoon, I suppose. I'm Kanja, and master of this place. Are you... Are you here with business? I hope you do not wish to apprentice with me, for I have help enough, as you can see. Not at all, said Lauren. We are travelers who have come far on the road. Some of our possessions require repair, bits and bridles and things of that sort. Kanja nodded, and her eyes roving over the group. They seemed to linger for a moment on Uzo, and her cheeks reddened. I can be of help there, but you should know that my shop's craftsmanship is famous. My apprentices and I do good work, and my prices reflect our quality. We would expect no less, said Anna smoothly. Indeed, an artisan who takes pride in their work is a treasure beyond the value of mere gold. If that is how you feel about quality, could we beg a recommendation? The smith dropped her gaze from Uzo to Annis. Her eyes sharpened as though she was surprised to hear such careful words from such a young girl. I'm not fond of begging, but what sort of recommendation do you seek? While we are in Bertram, we have certain goods we wish to sell, said Annis. We have been searching among jewelers all morning, but none of them seemed quite right for the sale, you might say. It is as you just said, our goods are very valuable, and we price them in equal measure to their quality. Kanja's eyes sharpened. Again. I may know someone who could give a fair price for such valuable jewels. Lauren leaned forwards and dropped her voice. I have heard of a man in Bertram who is just such a friend to many people. Mayhap you know the name? The steelsmith looked over her shoulder to ensure none of her apprentices were close enough to hear. What name would that be? I was told it was Weil. Kanja gave us a very slight nod. I know him, and if you seek to trade in certain very fine goods, there is no one better. I would know. Her gaze rose to Uzo again, and she gave him a little smile. Indeed, it is something I pride myself on. I have an eye and a taste for only the finest things in life. Uzo's brows rose almost imperceptibly. Lauren looked back and forth between him and Kanja, and she almost burst out laughing as she realized what the smith was saying. Just to be sure, she cocked her head as if curious. And do you have a husband who shares in those fine tastes? The smith's cheeks reddened slightly, and she dropped her gaze from Uzo demurely. Who would want such a thing as a husband? It would only be a denial of other may have better opportunities that present themselves. Lauren almost guffawed out loud, but she restrained herself. Instead, she met Uzo's gaze and raised her brows. He glared back at her, and she could almost see him withhold a groan. Lauren tilted her head and smirked. Uzo gave a great sigh. Then he stepped forwards, flashing Kanja his widest smile. It was so bright it even dazzled Lauren. I myself have never thought to deny any of life's pleasures, he said, voice almost a purr. Lauren thought the steelsmith might bounce on her toes like a child. Behind them both, Jem looked between Uzo and Kanja with a scowl on his face. A little pang of guilt struck her, but she dismissed it. Jem looked more annoyed than devastated. I'm glad to hear it, said Kanja, grinning at Uzo. Mayhap I could arrange an introduction, then, after a fine meal spent together? I promise you that my tastes extend to wine as well. You look like a man of Feldemar, so you may not know fine Dortian wine. We make it with rice, and it is clear and sweet. Uzo inclined his head. I shall look forward to a new taste, then. Lauren and Annis turned away suddenly, both hiding their mouths behind their hands to stifle a laugh. Jem only snorted. Kanja shifted on her feet. I cannot wait. Come and see me before the sun goes down. It would be my pleasure, said Uzo. Then he actually drew her hand up and bent his lips to kiss it. Kanja shivered. They left the shop and made their way through the streets back towards their inn. All were silent for a long moment. Annis and Lauren kept sneaking glances at Uzo, who stared stoically ahead. But at last he growled through his teeth. If you mean to say something, you may as well get it over with. The girls burst out laughing, and even Shiyun could not keep herself from a grin. I thought she meant to have you on the spot, said Annis. I wonder if she would have if the apprentices were not in the room. What sort of dastardly woman is she, grumbled Jem. Why, she only just met you. Is no one else suspicious that she agreed to give up the secret so easily? I, for one, am not, said Annis. In the backroom dealings that take place between smugglers and thieves across the 9 kingdoms, such transactions are neither rare nor frowned upon. Indeed, many welcome them, for there are many darker deeds that can pay for goods and services. Jem glowered in evident disagreement. Lauren forced her smile away. But of course, Uzo, you know you need not do this if you do not want to. It would be an aid to the mission, but we can find another way. He heaved a sigh. I do not prefer women, but neither do I loathe them. You are not asking anything I am not willing to give for the sake of our quest. But may I speak freely? Lauren nodded at once. Always. Uzo stopped walking and caught her gaze. Soldier to commander, I expect you to get me very, very drunk before you send me out to my doom. Lauren could not stop a single loud bark of laughter, but she forced herself back to solemnity at once. You have my word, commander to soldier, and when the bards sing the tale of our adventures, I will see to it that none of them forget the great sacrifice of Uzo the spearman. Anna stumbled over and screamed with laughter while Shiyun chuckled. I hope readers like this scene, because I fucking love it. And even Uzo and Jem wore reluctant smiles as they set off towards the inn again. Chapter 6 done! Lauren did her level best to fulfill Uzo's request, doling out precious gold to fill him with fine Calentan wine during their midday meal. Uzo drank deep and often, while Annis tittered and Jem shook his head ruefully. Uzo had not often complained during their journey, but as the wine set in, he began to make long-suffering remarks about his fate. Am I to blame for the way I look? He said, the words slurring slightly. I only ever sought to be a warrior, yet all my life lechers have eyed me like a mountain to be climbed. That is, mayhap, an unfortunate metaphor, said Shiyun, but come now, I know you had lovers on the seat. You have never wanted for fine company. Uzo slumped over the table and shrugged. I suppose I have had my share of good companions in my time, yes. There, you see, said Shiyun, smiling as she sipped her wine. Do not look so morose. We all honor your great sacrifice in the name of the High King. Lauren and Annis chuckled. Uzo's scowl deepened, and he pushed his chair back from the table. I suppose I have had enough fun poked at me. I shall go and get this over with. Farewell, said Jem, who had not looked up from his food in some time. Be safe. Uzo gave the boy a small smile. He ruffled Jem's hair before walking away. I shall. Best to put the matter from your mind, little master. Jem's head came up and he watched the mystic go. Then he lowered his chin to rest on his folded arms again, looking a little less forlorn. There was little to do until Uzo's return. They went to their room after they had finished eating, and there Lauren and Annis sat discussing the map while the others rested. Annis read the names of various cities to Lauren and explained some of her thoughts about them, the pieces she had been trying to put together in their search for Damaris. As we traveled, I sometimes wondered if she might be making for Bertram, said Annis, but I thought that would be folly. Bertram is not the capital, but all the same the King's Law has a strong presence. She would attract notice here no matter how stealthily she traveled. It might have made sense as a brief way stop before some other destination, but when she began to cut back and forth across the northern countryside, I thought that possibility had vanished. Could it still be possible, said Lauren. We lost her trail in Sidwan. What if she evaded us long before that? What if we pursued her retinue for the last week or so while she made for Bertram and beyond? Annis frowned. Anything is possible, but if that is the case, we have almost certainly lost her. A while later, Uzo returned at last. His jaw was set in a firm line as he quietly entered their room. His clothing was mussed. When he stopped before Lauren, he gave her a quick salute. "I have returned, Nightblade." "No need for formality," said Lauren. "Do we have what we need?" "We do," said Uzo. "Kanja waits downstairs, there to lead us to Weil." From the other corner of the room, Shion looked at him with a carefully neutral expression. "And did Kanja get what she needed?" Ennis nearly died from trying to restrain her giggling, and Lauren hid a smile. Jem looked morose, but Uzo only glared at Shion. "Even when it points in a less desirable direction, my spear is still strong." Lauren leaped to her feet and clapped him on the shoulder. "And that is all we need to hear about that, I think. Thank you again, Uzo. Now let us go and fetch the Moon-Eyed Smith while she is still amenable." They left Chet in the room again and went downstairs, where they found Kanja waiting for them. A beatific smile played across the smith's face. She draped an arm across Uzo's shoulders and kissed his cheek before nodding warmly to the others. "Greetings, all. Let us do our business. It is a fine evening for it." "Fine indeed," said Lauren. "We are ever grateful for your willingness to make an introduction." "Oh, I am more than willing," said Kanja, rubbing Uzo's hair. "And please accept my earnest wish for many more favorable dealings in the future." Several of the common room's patrons... Several of the common room's patrons looked at Kanja and rolled their eyes. From the way they muttered into their drinks, Lauren doubted this was the first time they had seen the smith conducting such business. Uzo gave Lauren a weary look. She hid a smile and gestured Kanja out the door. The streets were lit with strange lanterns like Lauren had never seen before. Their sides were made with parchment, not glass, and they were open at the top and bottom, with a small cover a finger or two above the top to keep their flames from falling prey to wind or snow. The paper gave them a warm, soft glow, less harsh than a regular lantern, and it bathed all the streets and walls of the city as they made their way along. There were few dancers or other street performers here, the way there had been on the Cedar in Dahab. But as the sky above grew darker, some people climbed to rooftop balconies built into many of the houses and shops. There they would stand, leaning on a railing, and sing. The words were in no tongue Lauren recognized, and the tune was unfamiliar, though it sounded old. Then she noticed that the words and the tunes blended together from one singer to the next, with just enough difference to tell they were somewhat different songs. It created an odd sensation as they walked, for the same song seemed to shift and meld into different forms of itself the farther they went. Most of the party looked up at the singers as they went, mouths hanging open slightly in awe, but Kanja walked as if she did not even notice them, and Lauren supposed that might be true since she likely heard them often enough. But Shion tilted her head back, a pleasant smile tugging at her lips. It was the look of one meeting a friend they had not seen in a long time. "Why do they sing?" said Jem. His voice was hushed with reverence. "It is a farewell to winter," said Shion softly. "The calendar of Underrealm says that spring has come already, of course, but the tradition dictates that we sing it on this night. That custom was built on the fading of the snows, and not the marks of some scholars upon a piece of paper." "What luck that we should be here," said Annis. "To think that they only sing like this once a year." Kanja and Shion gave a quick snort of laughter together. "That is not the case," said Kanja. Soon they will sing the song to greet spring. Then they will sing another song to mark spring's peak, and then another to say farewell to spring, and then another to greet summer, and so on. If you spend any length of time in the great Dorsan cities, you will likely grow sick of all the singing." "I do not see how I could," said Lauren. "I hope I get to hear it again and often." They reached the point where two rivers became one and spun away westward. Each current was spanned by a great bridge. In the center of the confluence was a massive pedestal built of unyielding stone, upon which were hung many lanterns. From what Lauren could see, it was crafted out of a rock that had been in the water already. Atop the pedestal was a great statue of bronze, mayhap 6 paces tall. She was a woman, that much was certain, clad in armor and with her long flowing hair splayed out in the wind. On her shield was a device of the sun. "Rena Sunmane," said Annis with reverence. "She resided here in Bertram during the Kinslayer War." "She did," said Kanja, "but that statue was built a long, long while after those times. Now they say she stands guard over the riverboats that wind along the waterways. I myself think she is a great nuisance that too many ships crash into, but who would waste the effort to remove such a large rock from the river, especially when many of the simpler folk nearly worship her?" Annis scowled at the smith's back. They crossed to Bertram's eastern district, built on the wedge of land between the two smaller rivers. Shortly after that, Kanja stopped in front of a large building. It looked like a simple shop, but its front door was locked and barred shut. Kanja began to lead them around to the back of the building, but Lauren stopped her, turning to Uzo and Shion. Wait here, she said. I will take Ennis and Jem inside. Only come after us if you hear trouble. Shion nodded, and she and Uzo took position to either side of the alley beside the building. Conjure gave Uzo a little wave as she left. He returned it with a sickly smile. Oh, I hear a beautiful woman. Have you noticed how much neater my office is?
Yes. You clean.
I didn't.
Hi, stream. It's 3:45, stream. You know what that means, stream?
What does that mean?
You gotta go pick up the kids.
No, I don't have to go till 10 after 4.
Luke has practice.
Luke has soccer practice today. Oh no, I have to go. I don't even have time to finish this chapter. Well, we did a half hour.
He's going to go on tonight because he's got to get the book done tonight.
I am for sure.
Whoop whoop.
I don't think I'm going to finish, just so you know.
He's going to finish, and he's really totally dead set on it.
Not unless I stayed up all night, which is not an option.
Oh.
Yes, I guess I should have started earlier, Kristen. Haha.
Kristen is a wise woman.
We're doing all kinds of cool stuff. I spent a lot of time today putting together a graph. No, I didn't spend that much time on that. Oh my god. Oh, okay. Where are you going?
Oh, what are we doing?
Rubbing my neck.
Men, right?
I love you. You're the best. Oh, right.
Better than all the rest.
And his practice is at the school, right?
Yep.
Okay. All right, everybody. I gotta go. I will definitely stream again tonight. Definitely. TM. Trademark. It's a joke.
Okay.
But I will catch y'all later. Bye.
Bye.